Welcome back. Today, we're going to look back at 1972 and the albums that were the most impressionable to me as they turned 50 years old at the sound of Safe and Sound, Texas. So we're back to focus on a year 50 years ago. Boy, it just seems like only yesterday. 1972. I was a sophomore in high school at that point in time and really discovering some new music at the time. So what I'm going to do is look at the top albums that I had purchased at the time and had an effect on me or were popular to me at the time. Now, this isn't necessarily saying these were the top albums of the year, and there probably are some that I missed that are really strong in your heart and mind. But these are the ones that were most impressionable to me for a variety of reasons. So we're going to talk about this. Thanks to Lisa for asking for this topic because I think it is a relevant one. And, you know, it made me reflect back when I started looking at what was released that year. I started to look at top 10, top 50, top 100 lists. And although I will tell you there were some albums on there that I never even really realized at the time at all, there were some I realized, but I just really wasn't into the music. And I think one of the biggest albums of that year actually was Exile on Main Street by the Rolling Stones, which was a pretty strong album for them. But the impression I have of that one at the time was the single Tumbling Dice. As opposed to the album itself. I was kind of transitioning from more of being a 45 RPM single kind of guy into the album realm. So, you know, big FM stations were starting up then, kind of replacing AM a bit. So it was a kind of a transitional time. So again, these are the albums that had the most impression on me. And some of them continue to, and some just kind of fell by the wayside. So let's, without further ado, let's get into it. And I'm going to start with the top one for me. And you're going to be able to tell it's a top one for me for a variety of reasons, one of which is I have so many versions of it, so many copies of it. These are different presses from different countries, or a yellow vinyl is in here, for example, European vinyl. This one here is a quadraphonic version, which is really one of my favorites because the mixes are a little bit different. Can't Buy a Thrill, Steely Dan debut album. A lot of times people hear about Asia, which is a great, great album done later. And it was more of a jazzy. This is more of their pop jazz, I would call it, kind of album. So you've probably heard a couple of the hits off here. Do It Again was their first single. Go Back, Jack, and Do It Again. Really a different sounding kind of song. Reelin' in the Years was the second single off this as well. Did pretty well. But really what's impressionable to me about this album, I'm sure we've all had this experience where we bought an album and we liked a few songs, maybe we heard off of it or even just one. And then you play the album and it's like, well, it's okay, but you know, I mean, I could do without track 3 and 5 on one side and track, you know, 2 and 4 on the other side. They really just aren't that great. Or maybe literally just 1 or 2 songs are great. And the rest is kind of like, it's not so hot. It's not so hot. But this album, I can say track for track, song for song, I'll listen to this album straight through over and over and over again. A lot of great other songs. I mean, you know, when I go through them and I think about it, Dirty Work, I'm a Fool to Do Your Dirty Work, Kings, Midnight Cruiser, Only a Fool Would Say That, kind of a jazzy up-tempo song. And then, yeah, on the second side, beyond the singles, Fire in the Hole, Brooklyn Owns the Charmer, Under Me, A Change of the Guard, and Turn That Heartbeat Over Again. I mean, these are all solid songs. So, you know, for me, this was the best album for me. I really enjoyed it, and it set kind of a standard for me. And to say, oh boy, somebody can make an album that really has great songs all the way through. I really hadn't experienced that since the Beatles. And so, for me, can't buy a thrill. If you don't have it in your collection, you've got to have it. And it's one that's not that easy to find on the market related to older versions because it hasn't been repressed, believe it or not. So if you see one in the wild, pick it up. All right, here's the second album that was most impressionable to me. The Eagles. This is their debut album called Eagles. Now I got to be careful. Now they're not called the Eagles. If I said that, it's their band name is Eagles, not the Eagles. So be known that Don Henley has made a case of that. So on some of these 72 albums and some that you'll see from me, you're going to see a little sticker on here, and this is one that I put on, and it says Soundgarden. And the reason I'm going to bring this up is because there was a additive kind of thing that you could spray onto your records back then, and it was developed by Ball Corporation. Yes, Ball Corporation, as in the Ball jars that you use for canning and things. Ball Corporation. They bought the rights to this formula, and this formula actually came out of one of the early NASA launches that they did tests on in space. And this was kind of a coating. And this coating was found that if you put it on a record, it actually preserved the record and reduced wear of the needle and the diamond going through the groove. And I can tell you, from personal experience, I tested using this on a record and then not using it on a different record, and the wear on the record without it was much greater over time. You could hear pops and clicks and things, whereas when you did it on these, they sounded as good the 100th time as it did the first. And to this day, this sounds fabulous to this day. So Soundgarden, there's a current product called LAST, L-A-S-T. It's a preservative and a cleaner. They make a cleaner and a preservative. Preservative is very similar to this. So I use LAST now because Soundgarden went away many years ago. But this is a great album. A lot of the same situation. A lot of great songs on one album. I could listen to it straight through. So that Eagles were nobody at that point, right? They just started off. Take It Easy was a big hit, and Witchy Woman. So this album begins with those two songs back to back. So it's quite a powerhouse. And I can tell you from the first strum of the guitar at the beginning of Take It Easy, when this starts, it is an amazing experience. So another album, if you don't have, you should get. This has been re-released a lot, so you can find it very easily. Just to make a point, I recently got the Mobile Fidelity one-step version of this, which is cut at 45 RPM. It's on two albums to get it to stretch across. And I heard things on this that I never heard before in terms of detail and great vocal separation and great detail. These are not cheap. These are about 125 bucks. I don't know if this one's available anymore. Probably you can buy it. Obviously, I think I saw it in the store for 175 or so. But if this is for a favorite album, I'll do that. But that's again my second most impactful album of 1972. The third one is America's Homecoming. This is their second album. It's the luxurious gatefolds, that you had back with albums. A nice gatefold. And so this album had some hits on it as well. Ventura Highway, Don't Cross the River. Another one was Only in Your Heart. Really a good, solid album. Their first one had A Horse with No Name, and this one was the follow-up. I actually kind of like this one a little more myself, but the first one's great as well. Saw them live at the Arie Crown Ballroom, which is part of McCormick Place in Chicago at the time, had third-row seats. Amazing. This album had come out, and this was kind of the tour for it. But anyway, again, another impressionable album. All the songs on here really solid. This is available to get, I think, in the used market. I think it's been repressed by Friday Music as well. Another very impressionable album. Next one, taking a little bit of a jauntlet here. Close to the Edge by Yes. Roger Dean is the guy that always does these these covers and does some great artwork, as you can see. This is, what they used to call a concept album, and it was very long, really isn't individual songs as much as it is just a song to song moving through kind of a thing. Really a great experience. This isn't one that you listen to a song. You kind of listen to it throughout from side to side to kind of get immersed in it. But again, great album. I liked Yes a lot, and this was one of my favorites. 1972, Close to the Edge, available quite a bit. Elton John, Honky Chateau. This is a great album. It had the hit Rocket Man. And this was also a really impressionable song. Honky Cat was on here as well. But Rocket Man was the song that was most well known. Another big FM hit was called Mona Lisa and Mad Hatters. That was on here as well. But really a solid album. Elton John was just kind of getting into his own. Rocket Man certainly added to his career, and this was one of my favorite albums of 72 as well. Toulouse Street. This is the Doobie Brothers here. Okay. This is a quad version of it, 4-channel version, which really sounds nice on a quad system. This has Listen to the Music on it, which was obviously their big inaugural hit. And it also had another one called Jesus is Just All Right, which was really a big hit on FM as well. And again, another gatefold album. That one maybe, hopefully won't get me banned on YouTube. But anyway, Toulouse Street, another impressionable album by the Doobie Brothers, 1972. Moving over to female genre here, we have Miss Carly Simon with No Secrets. And this had You're So Vain on it, which was the big secret on that was, I think Mick Jagger was the background vocal on that. But the question was, who was the song written about? For years, nobody knew. And finally, we found out it was Warren Beatty, who she wrote You're So Vain about. That was a big hit. No Secrets, a good album by Carly Simon, one of the better ones of 1972. And all I'll say is the young teenage boys loved the cover of Carly on this one. It was a great album. To another group that I got to enjoy very much, Jethro Tull. Now, I just want to clear up something. I've heard people say he about Jethro Tull. Jethro Tull is not a he, it's not a she. It's the name of a band, like Jefferson Airplane or the Beatles, okay? Jethro Tull. The lead person in the band, lead vocalist, writer is Ian Anderson. He's also a flutist. This is a concept album, thick as a brick. And another, interesting kind of like a newsreel, kind of a gatefold here, like a newspaper. This is an OG of this album as well. Really just a unique album, very unique. And I was starting to get into theme albums, as you can see with Yes Now and This, kind of getting into the, something a little richer than just individual songs. So that was another favorite of 72. Staying, of course, with a little bit of hard rock, Deep Purple, Machine Head. This was another gatefold. Gatefold's very popular. And this had Smoke on the Water, which, of course, is the ubiquitous song from Deep Purple. This album was very good from a rock perspective, driving kind of album. I personally, the year after they came out with Who Do We Think We Are, is the name of the album by Deep Purple. I actually liked that one better, frankly. But this is kind of what seeded me with Deep Purple. I might not have ever heard Who Do We Think We Are by Deep Purple if I hadn't had this one first. So, because I picked that one up kind of as a follow-up the year after. But again, Machine Head, a very, very standard kind of rock and driving kind of rock. And this is kind of what really was moving on FM stations and got them going, this kind of music, as well as some of the concept albums I brought to you earlier. A couple more here in the Mr. David Bowie. Okay, I was starting to get into this kind of thing. It was a little bit fringy for me. Okay, this is called Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars. Okay, actually, the title is The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars. So this is an OG copy, and this goes for a good piece of money these days. The original orange label RCA. David Bowie, obviously, big career even after this, but this was really more of a uh, I would say an FM album more than singles. Suffragette City was a kind of a single kind of a promotional thing that they were taking off this album, but it really wasn't a big top 40 kind of song. This really, was truly a FM driven kind of album, and Bowie was a little eclectic at the time, and as was Space Oddity. So, these were formational years for these artists, which, you think back now, David Bowie, with all that he had done in his catalog and all, you kind of take it for granted. But this was cutting stuff at the time. And so, for me, it was kind of like, yeah, this is a little different. I can see, this has some future to it. This has some purpose that's a little off of the norm of the top 40 kind of singles that we were used to on AM radio. So it's kind of transformational in that regard. So that was another impactful album. And the last one, certainly not least, but this was Concert for Bangladesh, which is really one of the first big aid albums kind of things, if you want to call it that, where they were trying to promote something for the betterment of certain, in this case, the country of Bangladesh and the starvation, which you kind of get the image of here from the picture. And it was a great, George Harrison was the key person here, and a lot of other artists joined him. And this was really a lot of songs were played on FM off of this. It was promoted very heavily. And it was just kind of a keystone album at the time, and it kind of was a change in the way of focus. It started to move toward this using music and musical artists toward trying to help causes. I'd say that's where this was. And this is a multi-album LP. You can get it fairly cheaply. There's some really good things on here. Billy Preston was in this as well, and he had some impressionable songs on here with Eric Clapton and George Harrison. So this was really a beginning of that, and kind of sparked what then became, a lot of the other type of concerts that came down the road after it related to these kind of efforts. So really kind of set in my mind at the time kind of music going beyond just mere entertainment. So those are the 72 albums, or 1972 albums, that really impacted me the most 50 years ago when they came out, ones that I acquired when they came out, and the impressions that they had on me. Hope it was interesting to you. Remember, again, subscribe and share this channel. And if you have any comments, questions, or any ideas on future shows, I'd be glad to hear those as well. And for now, I'll say goodbye from the sound of Safe and Sound, Texas.